43. That's how many emails I sent her in the 18 months before I finally understood that she was reading every single one of them with someone else in the room. I found out on a Thursday in February at 11:14 in the morning, sitting in my own kitchen with a coffee that had gone cold 40 minutes earlier. My name is Nadia Osei. I'm 37 years old. I'm an urban planner for the city of Portland, Oregon. I own a 2-bedroom condo in the Pearl District that I bought by myself at 32, during a period my mother still refers to as that stubbornness of yours. I run on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I meal prep on Sundays. I am, by most reasonable measures, a composed person. And I was not composed on that Thursday in February, but let me go back further, because none of it makes sense without the before. Simone and I met in graduate school at Portland State, urban planning program, second-year studio, a project on flood-resilient infrastructure along the Willamette. She sat down across from me and said, without any introduction, "Your section drawings are better than mine," which I find both impressive and irritating. I laughed. We became inseparable within a week. There is a particular kind of friendship that only happens in your late 20s, when you're finally becoming yourself, but the architecture of who that person is still feels provisional. Simone was part of how I understood myself. She was the person I called when I got passed over for a promotion at 30. She was in the waiting room when I had a biopsy that turned out to be nothing but felt enormous for 3 days. She was the one who helped me pack my ex-boyfriend's things into boxes and carried them to his car, without saying one unkind word about him, because she knew I wasn't ready to hear it yet. She was also the one who, over the course of 4 years, told me I was too intense in professional settings, too uncompromising with clients, too quick to challenge senior colleagues. She said it gently, always, in the context of concern. She called it advocating for me, helping me smooth the edges that might be holding me back. I believed her. That's the part that will take me the longest to reconcile. She moved into a senior associate role at Bergstrom and Hale, the firm we'd both wanted after graduation. I went to the city instead, which she'd said was the smarter, more stable path. "You'll have more protection there," she told me. "The private sector will eat you alive right now." She said it with such care that I didn't notice what she was doing with her other hand. Over the 18 months I spent applying to a coveted principal position at B&H. Yes, I applied to the firm where she worked because I had watched her trajectory and thought we might finally be colleagues. I shared everything with Simone. Every draft of my portfolio, every iteration of my cover letter, the strategic angle I planned to take in interviews, the 2 senior contacts I'd cultivated, and what they told me off the record about the culture. She was my sounding board. She asked clarifying questions. She took notes in the leather notebook she always carried. Looking back, I can now name the small moments I filed away without knowing why. The time she seemed surprised I'd made it past the first round, a flash of something, quickly replaced with warmth. The time she told me the search was probably wrapping up, when I knew from a recruiter it was still very much open. The time I mentioned one of my contacts by name, and there was a pause that lasted 2 seconds longer than it should have. None of it cohered, or rather, I didn't let it. The reveal wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a shouting match or a walk-in on something undeniable. It was a forwarded email. A recruiter I'd worked with 2 years prior, a woman named Dana, who is one of those quietly decent people. The professional world runs on, sent me a message that Thursday morning. She'd been approached by a mutual connection with concerns about my candidacy at B&H. The concerns were specific, too aggressive in collaborative settings, difficulty with leadership feedback, a tendency to dominate projects. The message attached at the bottom of Dana's email, the one she had forwarded to show me what was being said about me because she wanted me to know it, was from Simone. I read it twice, then a third time. The language was measured, professional, genuinely effective. Simone had always been a good writer. She described me as someone who was better suited to an environment with more oversight. She mentioned that she'd seen me struggle in collaborative frameworks firsthand. She didn't lie exactly. She took true things, my directness, my standards, my self advocacy, and arranged them to look like deficiencies. She had sent it to 3 people, one of whom sat on the hiring committee. I sat with it for an hour and a half before I moved. The coffee was long cold, the kitchen was very quiet. I remember thinking almost clinically, she has been doing this for years, not just here. The smooth edges, the stable path, the careful doubt she'd press into me like a thumbprint into warm clay. Maybe you've known someone like that. Someone whose help was always precisely calibrated to keep you just slightly smaller than your potential. I called her that afternoon. I want to be honest, I was calm. Not the performed calm of someone holding back a flood, but the actual calm that comes when the thing you feared turns out to already have happened. The grief had arrived ahead of the rage. There was nothing left to protect. She picked up on the second ring. I said, Dana forwarded me your email. A pause, 2, 3 seconds. I didn't fill it. Nadia, I'm not asking you to explain it, I said. I just wanted you to know that I know. Another pause, and then quietly, it wasn't personal. I've thought about that sentence many times since. I've decided it was the most honest thing she said to me in years, and also the most damning, because she was right. It wasn't personal. It was calculated, which is worse. I said, okay, and I ended the call. The weeks after were strange. Not painful the way loss is painful, but disorienting the way a room looks different when you move a piece of furniture you'd forgotten was even there. I kept reaching for her to process what had happened with her, to hear her take on it, which is its own kind of dark irony. The dependency is the point. It's what makes this type of betrayal so specifically effective. I had to ask myself things I didn't want to ask. Why had I kept believing her assessments of me, even as they made me smaller? What had I been getting from a friendship where I was always slightly the student and she was always slightly the advisor? I'd mistaken her certainty for wisdom, her familiarity for loyalty. And I'd wanted, I think, someone to tell me who to be, because building that on your own is terrifying. That part, the recognition that I had participated in my own diminishment, was harder than the betrayal itself. She handed me the frame, but I kept putting my face in it. Thumbnail quote, "She didn't lie exactly. She just arranged the truth." I withdrew my application to B&H. Not because I believed her assessment, but because I no longer wanted to walk into a building where she'd shaped how people saw me before I arrived. A few months later, I was offered a principal role in the city's climate resilience division, work I care about more than I would have cared about anything at that firm. I'm not going to tell you that was justice. Professional outcomes aren't justice. They're just what happens next. Simone sent me a text in April. It said she hoped I was doing well and that she regretted how things had unfolded. I read it in the parking lot of a hardware store, thought about it for 30 seconds, and put my phone away. I haven't replied. I may not. Not because I'm punishing her, though I'm also not interested in pretending I don't feel the weight of what she did, but because some bridges become load-bearing only after they're gone. You find out what you are using them for and whether you still need to cross in that direction. I run on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I still meal prep on Sundays. I'm working on the flood resilience corridor along the Willamette, the same river I studied in graduate school, beside a woman I thought I knew. The maps are better now than anything I drew back then. If you've ever let someone else narrate who you are, you already know how long it takes to reclaim that voice, but you also know it's possible. And you know exactly when the moment was, and the quiet one, not the loud one, when you finally stopped letting them